Does ESPN's Kirk Herbstreit hate the Georgia Bulldogs? That's the question that a lot of people have on their minds and have been asking themselves over the last 24 hours. So, of course, we're going to talk about it. We're going to break it down. So, if you didn't see the news that came out yesterday or 2 days ago, whenever you're watching this, apparently Dylan Raiola's father, Dominic Raiola, did an interview with I forgot who it was. I think it may have been Rivals or someone over there, but a big kind of recruiting media sports-based outlet. And he said that when the news was swirling around that Dylan Raiola was going to flip from Georgia to Nebraska, when that news was circulating, that Kirk Herbstreit called him. Now, they know each other, of course, and have for a long, long time. I don't know if their families are close, but it's clear that Kirk Herbstreit and the Raiola family are somewhat close and have known each other for a long, long time. And Dominic Raiola said that, when everything was about to go public, that he was going to flip to Nebraska, Kirk Herbstreit called and said, "Hey, man, is this true? Or is Dylan really thinking about considering flipping to Nebraska? I would 100% support this. I'm all on board. You can't let that opportunity go away." He knows the familiarity and what the Nebraska program means to Dom Raiola, the family, Dylan Raiola. And when Georgia fans heard this, that Kirk Herbstreit basically called them and said, "Hey, yeah, you should flip from Georgia to Nebraska," you can imagine there are a lot of Georgia fans that weren't necessarily happy with Kirk Herbstreit after that. Now, I don't think he hates Georgia, but a lot of Georgia fans out there think that Kirk Herbstreit doesn't like Georgia. Paul Feinbaum doesn't like Georgia. ESPN in general does not like Georgia for whatever reason. I've never got that. I understand somewhat why people don't like ESPN. I don't really watch ESPN unless it's a game on, mainly a college football game. Other than that, I don't really turn it on to watch what they have to offer. But Kirk Herbstreit is a big deal. He's an icon. He's one of the best to do what he does. I mean, he is one of the faces of college football. And I don't think he hates Georgia, even though I understand why Georgia fans would feel that way. When he's calling, their five-star quarterback commit and saying, "Hey, if you're thinking about flipping to Nebraska, you should do it," right? I get it. I think from his perspective, he just wants more parity in college football. Nebraska used to be a powerhouse program. They're not anymore. They haven't mattered since Ndamukong Suh was there, I guess back in 2009. So this is going on 15 years where Nebraska football, as good as they once were, and they're a blue blood program. They haven't mattered. No one cares outside of Nebraska about Nebraska. They haven't mattered. No one watches them. No one cares. They just don't matter. They've been irrelevant in college football for the last 15 years. But with Matt Rule taking over and getting their savior, I mean, this guy has so much pressure on him to do well at Nebraska. He didn't have that pressure at Georgia. Georgia's won 2 national titles in the last 3 years. They don't need some guy who used to live in Texas, who moved to Arizona, who moved to Georgia to be their savior, to bring them back. Georgia's already back. They didn't need Dylan Raiola. Nebraska needed Dylan Raiola. And it was a big news when he flipped, and you understood why. His dad played there. I think his mom played there. He grew up, Nebraska posters on the wall. He chose Georgia over Nebraska. Even though he moved to Buford High School to be closer to Georgia so he could go to all the games in the fall. He was there every Saturday Georgia played in Athens. He was there. He was the first recruit to walk down. And I remember it was either the Kentucky or Ole Miss game. I think it was the Ole Miss game where Dylan Raiola and his family were down on the field, and Kirk Herbstreit was calling the game. He was at midfield with his dog, and Kirk Herbstreit and Dylan Raiola were talking it up like they've known each other forever. Maybe they have. But I remember seeing that from the sidelines. I'm there taking my pregame pictures, trying to see what recruits are there, and I noticed it, and I said, "Oh, that's interesting." I don't know who called each other over there or how long they've known each other, but it's clear that Kirk Herbstreit, had an eye on Dylan Raiola's recruitment. And maybe he's at the point where he said, "You know what? I don't want the big boys of college football to continue running college football," meaning Georgia. If you're Kirk Herbstreit, yeah, he probably would rather see Nebraska be relevant again than have Georgia win 3 out of 4 national titles. And that could happen. Whether Kirk Herbstreit likes that or wants it to happen or whatever, it is what it is. Georgia's going to be very, very good. But if you're Kirk Herbstreit, you want these programs to be back. I mean, college football is better when Nebraska is important and when they're relevant. Same with Tennessee. I think same with Southern Cal. Same with Miami. Same with several programs. Texas and Oklahoma. The game is just better when those programs are in the thick of it and doing well. Those are big programs that bring a lot of eyeballs to the table. They've got some history, mostly in the big time past, but some of these programs have had recent success too. Nebraska, again, they've been irrelevant. And now they have this 5-star quarterback coming in, Nebraska legacy. And instead of going with the mighty, powerful Georgia Bulldogs and keeping them, having another 5-star quarterback on board, he was thinking about flipping to Nebraska, and he did. But now it's coming out that, guys like Kirk Herbstreit called the family and said, hey, do it. Everyone wants to see Nebraska back, and maybe they can be back with Herbie-Raiola. And he probably said, Georgia's going to be just fine, Herbie-Raiola, Dylan. Georgia's going to win. They don't necessarily need you. Nebraska needs you. You are the born-again son, quarterback, born to relive, to bring Nebraska back to the glory days. That's what he was put on this earth to do. That's what they probably told him. And he knows he's got a lot of pressure. And he said the whole time after he committed to Nebraska, hey, my heart was always in Lincoln. My mind wanted to play for the Georgia Bulldogs. I get it, totally get it. That's the #1 program in the country. You're going to be surrounded by big-time receivers and tight ends and offensive linemen and running backs, and you're going to have a great defense on the other side helping you out. But at the end of the day, he said, my heart was always, I want to be at Nebraska. Probably should have committed to Nebraska earlier then. If that's where your heart was, why play the recruiting games? That's a question for Herbie-Raiola. I'm not sure he's watching our videos still, but if he is, maybe drop a comment in the section below. If your heart was always with Nebraska, why didn't you just commit to Nebraska from day one, halfway through, before your senior year? You had plenty of opportunities, dude. You had a long time, and you waited till the very end to flip on Georgia to go to Nebraska. But a lot of people love the move, especially if you don't like the Georgia Bulldogs and you see that they had their 5-star quarterback commit flip to go to Nebraska. If it sounds crazy if you didn't know the connection between the Raiolas and Nebraska, but most people know the storyline there and how his dad was a great Cornhusker lineman, and they're a Nebraska family, right? And it was a big deal when he committed to Georgia because the kid's really good. He's got a lot of arm talent. There's no doubt about it. Kid can sling it. He made some jaw-dropping throws last year, but Georgia doesn't need him. Nebraska needs him. And that's why Kirk Herbstreit was all on board, calling in and saying, hey, I don't know if he said please, begging them to do it, but he said if the rumors are true that are circling around right now that Dylan might be flipping in Nebraska, you have to jump on that opportunity. If it's an opportunity, I guess it is. But Nebraska is not winning anything of significance anytime soon. You can't just have a quarterback with no offensive line and no skill receivers and no stable of running backs. That's not how it works. Most quarterbacks can walk into Athens, and if they're a really good quarterback, they could take them a long way because they have the surrounding cast, really good players around them. I don't know if Nebraska has that. They are heading in the right direction, and now they've got a quarterback who can really open things up and bring some explosiveness to that offense and finally make them a competitor again. But Nebraska needed him badly, and they got him, and a lot of people are happy about it, whether they're happy for Nebraska or just happy that Georgia doesn't have a 5-star quarterback on board. Whatever it is, most people, I think, around the country, college football fans who cover recruiting, and even Kirk Herbstreit, were very happy when Herbie-Raiola decided to flip from Georgia to Nebraska. That's just how it is. Those are the facts. I'm not saying it's right, it's wrong, but yeah, I don't think Kirk Herbstreit hates Georgia, but he is fairly happy that Herbie-Raiola is suiting up for the Nebraska Cornhuskers this fall. Thanks for watching this video. We've got a ton of content over on Dawg. If you've been watching these videos through the offseason, thank you so much. If you've been enjoying these videos, you're going to enjoy the website even more. You can sign up to our free newsletter. That link is down below in the description. It's free to sign up and it's free to read almost every story on Dawg Post right now. It's not going to cost you a penny. Sign up to our free newsletter and read our free stories on Dawg Post. Can't say the word free enough, right? Because it's free. Again, really appreciate y'all watching these videos. Hope to see you over on the website.